I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your hosts, Tim Harrison and Jamie Jackson.
Hey Lurkers, it's Jamie.
And Tim. So Jamie, we are continuing Skinwalker, am I correct?
Yes.
So this is part 2.
This is part 2 of Skinwalker. And just so everybody knows, we are recording at Tim's house, trying to catch up on stuff. And that means we have a baby and some dogs and a toddler who's asleep at the moment.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
So if you hear some strange little noises, that's probably what it is, because I can't edit everything.
Can't blank out everything?
No, I can't. Especially if it happens while we're talking.
I know. She was sleeping. She was sleeping until we had to start.
That's always the way it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's what happens. It's part of life.
Kinsley's making her debut. Stealing the show.
So, I think, what would this be? Episode 10, I think.
Is it 10?
Ed Gein would be 8. Skinwalker Part 1 is 9. So, this would be episode 10.
Episode 10 it is.
Okay, so I guess we should recap first.
We should recap first. So, where did we leave off?
We left off, the Shermans had been experiencing things moving in their house.
So poltergeist activity.
The poltergeist type activity, and their son had moved the cordwood and the poles for the fencing, and when somebody checked, they had been moved back to where they had been before. So.
Oh yeah, and this is where the pole digger, what is that called? The fence.
The auger.
Yep.
The post hole digger is what they refer to it as. It had disappeared. It was 70 pounds, and they found it 20 feet up in a tree. So
We're right before the cows, correct?
we're right before the cows. The cows have not been brought to the ranch yet, because that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Is when the cattle starts coming.
It gets real.
Yep, so we went over the history of the area. We went over the history of the UFO sightings and the beginnings of the weirdness on Skinwalker, which was at that point the Sherman Ranch. And most of my research was reading the book Hunt for the Skinwalker.
That was a challenge for you too, wasn't it? You had like 3 days to read it.
I had 3 days to read it. I was speed reading. George Knapp and I don't remember the other guy's name. Cole McKellum or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it'll be in the show notes. You can look it up there. I don't have it with me. I took it out of my bag, and my mom wants to read it.
Really?
Yeah. She asked me for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not a shocker. But
It's a shocker.
Is it really?
Yeah. No offense, Mom.
Is she one of those people that like read one of the romantic novels I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, she and I read a lot of the same stuff. So
y'all read the books with like the half-naked men on the front?
Oh, no, those aren't really. Kinsley reads them.
She better not be reading them. I wear sweatshirts, hoodies, and beanies. Yeah? Ain't that right? That's right. That was a yes.
She reads like the good books that have like a plot and character development.
Oh, so she don't read the weird, like, crazy
not
sex
the
books?
Not the Harlequin. Yeah, they're not very. There's not much substance to those.
Nope, there's not. Just a lot of just wanking and banging.
Yeah. Jesus. Oh,
so
God.
happy my toddler's asleep.
Yes, that's good. That's a good thing.
Because he'll be copying everything I'm saying.
At this point, Terry Sherman finally brings all of his cattle to the ranch.
Now, this isn't unusual because he's a cattle rancher.
He's a cattle rancher. This is the whole reason behind purchasing this ranch. They wanted something away from nosy neighbors, wanted something more rural, and so this was like the perfect area for them.
And he was a prize cattle guy, wasn't he? Like, he actually was really, really good.
Yeah, he actually was known for his prize cows and bulls. his bovine, as Ethan would point out. His bovine were prize.
Oh, I tell you what, you got some nice bovines over there.
Oh, God. My phone's going to fall out of my pocket.
Why don't you sit on the table?
Because it'll go, meh, if it vibrates, so put it in my pocket.
What will it do?
Meh.
Oh, shit. You got that recording, you making those noises, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. As long as we're all on the same page.
We're all on the same page. Just so y'all know, it's like 10:30 at night, and we've had a long day, so we're a little punch drunk at this point. It's just
Punch drunk?
That's what you say, punch drunk.
Punch drunk.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, but that's where you use it.
I'm drinking chocolate almond milk. Does that count?
Sure.
Okay.
I never knew what it... I'm going to have to look up that saying now. Because now I'm like, I don't really know why you say that.
Yeah, because neither one of us had punch.
And we're not drunk. But it just means like you're so tired that you're goofy. Which is typical for me.
Yeah.
When I'm not tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the bovine are at the ranch.
Bovine?
Yes. And it was around this time that Terry's nephew came to stay at the ranch with the family. The nephew was not an outdoors type person, more of a city boy, and he was not a fan of the dark. So Terry thought that he'd use this visit to try to break him of his fear of the dark, which not really the best place to do that. Let's break you of your fear on Skinwalker Ranch.
Let's, my expertise is in cattle. Yes, just try to scare the crap out of you so your fear of the dark goes away.
So, anyway, one night, Terry, his son, and his nephew, they go for a walk, and there was still a little bit of light. So, it was a little after sunset, but it was still light out. It was getting darker by the minute. So, they're walking, and Terry sees the lights of what he believes is a trespassing RV about half a mile to the west. And he is pretty irritated because there's people on his property. Mm-hmm. And, it's not easy to get on his property because there's only one gate down the main road. So he's a little irritated. He also had seen the lights before, like on another occasion, but he had let it go. And this time he was like, that's it. We're gonna take care of this and let him have it.
Get this mofo off my ranch.
That's right. One time is one thing, multiple times is a different story.
I think one time's too much, but
I think one time's too much, but I guess he thought maybe they got turned around or lost, and if they're in an RV...
I mean, this is the guy that was just majestically petting a massive wolf, too. So
this is true, yes. Last episode, they were petting a wolf, skinwalker, whatever.
Who knows?
Okay, so he pointed out the RV to the boys, and the three of them headed in the direction. And when they got about 200 yards away from the RV, it started moving away from them. So they started jogging to catch up. Terry was worried that they were going to be breaking the fences. He could see the light in the front, and there was a red light in the back, and it was moving smoothly. And the lights seemed to then kind of rise a few feet in the air above the ground, and the RV increased its pace. So he was worried that they were driving through his fences. Mm-hmm. And as he's watching it, it had a almost like a headlight in the front and like red lights in the back, and he could see the lights would rise up and then come back down type of thing. So that's what it was doing.
So it looks like kind of like a... That's the best way to describe it. Like a floating car almost.
Kind of, yes. That's for the most part, but they don't realize this yet.
Oh.
They don't realize that's what's going on. They're just noting that it kind of seemed like they were raising up above the ground. It hadn't sunk in yet that that's what was going on.
This is a floating car? I got it right?
Sort of.
Holy mackerel.
So they're all three running at this point, trying to catch up with this vehicle, this RV. And at this point, they could see lights moving a few feet off the ground, and they realized at this point that the thing was lifting itself over the fences. So it wasn't driving through their fences, it was jumping the fences.
So it was fence jumping.
It was fence jumping.
That's normal.
An RV, a fence jumping RV.
I got a fence jumping car.
I don't. Mine just goes through them.
Mine's called Matilda.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You're such a dork. God.
Oh, no.
So they started thinking they would be able to have it trapped between the large fences and the trees, but the object actually lifted above the trees that were about 50 feet high. So the object lifted above the trees that were nearly 50 feet high, and it was oblong shaped, like a long refrigerator. Had the headlight in the front, a red light in the back, and it disappeared over the tree line. And it never made a sound. The nephew never visited the ranch again. Well, he never came back.
I think he came back with a whole new fear, too.
And I don't think he got over his fear of the dark. Not sure, but something's telling me he probably did not get cured of that.
You ever think you think he's still alive now?
Oh, yeah.
So you think when he saw Harry Potter, he pooped himself?
The flying car. I get that one. You saw that one. That's good. Oh, God.
Ding.
Oh, God.
That was pretty good.
That was good.
I tried.
I actually thought of the RV in Escape to Witch Mountain, which you've probably never seen. It's a Disney movie. It was a long time ago.
Wait, Dwayne The Rock Johnson's in it.
No, that's the remake. But basically, yes, it's the. I haven't seen the remake because remakes are never as good as the original.
It was that good. Anything that has that Samoan sexy beast in it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no.
Yeah, I would make love to The Rock.
Good to know.
We would make boulders.
We probably are way too tired to be recording this. Oh, God.
That was pretty good, wasn't it?
That was pretty good. So, a few weeks after they have their experience with this RV, Terry and his wife Gwen are out walking, headed west about an hour after sunset. So, again, still probably a little bit of light. It's not completely dark yet.
I mean, my main question is, why are you even out right now? Like, after what just happened? Maybe a month or two ago?
I mean, I don't know. Look at everything they found when they looked in the house after they got to the property. Everything's bolted. There's giant chains attached to each end of the house, and yet they were like, it's just crazy old people.
Hey, Jimmy, this stuff's normal now. What are you talking about? When you bought your house, you didn't have random locks everywhere?
No.
Actually, we don't want to talk about your house. Your house scares me.
That's the next episode. So they're out walking and they hear a metallic sound come from their right, and they stopped and they listened a few seconds, and then later they heard the noise again, and it sounded like metal banging on metal, and it sounded like it was coming from about 100 feet above them in the darkness.
So it's not in front of them, it's directly above them.
Yeah, they're standing there trying to figure out what this noise is, and it actually sounds like it's coming from above their heads.
Yeah, not today, Satan.
Yeah. So Gwen points in front of them where they saw a bright light about 100 yards ahead of them, and it was some type of vehicle. Terry thought it might be some lost miners because mining is actually something that happens in that area. I don't know if there's still miners, but whatever. So he thought maybe somebody was lost. And as they approached the object, it lifted off the ground. It's the same object that Terry had seen with his son and nephew. They walk in the direction of the bright white light, and they could just make out a refrigerator-shaped object behind the light and the red glow of the lights behind the thing. So,
don't they tell you to go away from the light?
I don't know why you would walk towards it. I would not do that. You're in the middle of nowhere. Help is not coming for you anytime soon.
See, this is where I question Terry's just blatant common sense. Like this, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna question it. I'm gonna have to question the man and be like, "Hey, bro, listen. I'm not against investigating things, okay? Let's be real here. But when you hear clacking, clinking, and ain't nothing to be seen, all of a sudden it just pops up out of nowhere. I think the last thing that goes to my mind is, let's go look at it.
Yeah, that's not what I'm doing.
Especially after everything is given its sign to you, kind of like telling you like get away, get out.
Exactly. So they're going towards it, and as they get close to it, it again lifts off the ground, glides smoothly, and glides away completely in silence.
So the second time this happened.
Yep. Each time Terry and his wife tried to get closer to the object, it repeated the move. It was clear that it was watching and reacting to them. So it would move further away, and then they would keep trying to get closer to it, and it knew they were coming closer, and it would again move further away. So whatever it was or whatever was in it, controlling it, saw them, knew that they were trying to get close.
So there's some intelligent operating it.
Yeah. Then in the distance behind them, they heard the metallic noise again. They turned away from the object to try and figure out where the sound was coming from. And when they turned back to the object was actually gone. So they inspected the ground where the object had been, and they found no tracks of any kind.
So it's just chilling there.
Yeah, made no tracks, gliding smoothly, and just vanished.
Seems normal.
Totally. For
normal.
Skinwalker Ranch, it is.
Sadly, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, it is.
So, sometime later, after a snowstorm, Terry was out checking on the ranch, which is a common occurrence because he's trying to catch activity.
So now he's looking.
He's looking for weird things. I can understand that to an extent. You own this property now. You're stuck. You can't turn around and sell it. So, let's figure out what the hell's going on. And maybe learn to live with it or learn how to stop it or whatever. I can understand it to an extent.
I didn't think about it like that. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah. I mean, what else is he going to do?
I mean, yeah, you really don't have an option.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably within a year of purchasing it. Maybe a year and a half at this point. But I'm going to say maybe within a year because it's winter now. So you can't turn around and sell it. You'd lose everything.
Plus, I mean, all the money probably put into his cattle and stuff, too.
Yeah. Figuring it out's basically the only thing you really can do. He realized the activity seemed to have increased once he got the cows to the ranch. So there were things going on. The wolf creature that showed up and grabbed the calf by the head, and they shot it 6 different times and barely did anything to it. Then you had the poltergeist activity, things disappearing and all that stuff. Relatively, except for the wolf thing, relatively minor. The cows show up, and then now we've got the RV UFO and banging noises coming from the sky above your head and that sort of thing.
I mean, we're going to have to talk about relatively normal, okay? I'm just going to put that out there. We could talk offline if we want to, but, just want to put it out there. RVs, hopping fences, and...
that wasn't the normal part. That's after the cows, it's not normal. Okay. Before, it's relatively normal.
Well, you tell me the next time a post digger that disappear up a tree, okay? And that happens, and no one knows why. If that's normal to you, I'm not coming to your house. I refuse.
I haven't had any post hole diggers, but you just reminded me of something else, so that I have to try to keep in my head. We'll see how that works.
I'm thinking of The Rock and Trent Taylor.
Okay, it's Travis.
I don't care. There's a T for Tim.
It's after a snowstorm. He turns towards the ridge and he sees an aircraft. He could see the outline against the snow-covered ridge. It was about 30 to 40 feet and reminded Terry of a snub-nosed, smaller version of a stealth bomber. And it was completely silent and there was no wind.
So it's a larger item. They're not seeing like a little speck. He's seeing, you said, 30, 40 feet?
30, 40 feet.
It's like a school bus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's massive.
Yeah, the aircraft was only about 20 feet off the ground, and it moved silently towards him, revealing a recurring pattern of tiny colored lights reflecting on the snow, obviously coming from the craft, and it moved in complete silence. There was no noise at all. Terry actually crouched down and watched the aircraft, and he said it was a matte black and seemed to be searching for something. Terry stretched his legs and his joints cracked, and instantly the lights turned off, and the craft turned towards him, and it hovered silently less than 100 yards away and only 15 to 20 feet off the ground. So it actually heard his knees crack. Now, that's not unusual because, Tim, you hear my knees crack every time I work out.
I wasn't going to say it. I was going to let it go.
It's like a gunshot sometimes. Not really, but if it's quiet and it pops, it's pretty loud.
I don't know. Your elbow gets out there sometimes, too.
It's mostly my knee.
Is that your knee?
It's my knee most of the time. Yeah, I know. My ankles do it, too. But not my bad ass. It doesn't crack.
You know, I think we've gone...
Sometimes it whistles. Sorry. Oh, God. Anyway.
You just say sometimes your ass whistles?
Oh, God.
How did I not catch that?
I don't know. The craft moved silently away from him without increasing its speed, and then it disappeared.
So after I heard his knees crack, it was like, all right, time to turn and go away.
Yep, quietly and nonchalantly disappear. Several weeks later, Gwen was driving home from work about 6 p.m.
Thank you.
So several weeks later, Gwen was driving home from work about 6 p.m. and Terry was out of town for a couple of days. The kids were staying with friends, and she would be completely alone at the ranch. All I gotta say is ain't no way in hell I'd be staying at this ranch.
Could you
by myself.
imagine if Ernie did that to you? If I did it to Elizabeth, I'm pretty sure when I come back after the house is burnt down, because everybody's out of the house, I probably have divorce papers I have to sign.
She probably was okay with it. I can't imagine. If she wasn't okay with it, she probably could have gone with Terry, I would imagine. Why would,
I need to really figure out what's wrong with this family.
I don't think anything was wrong with them. I just think they were they were ranchers, and they had a ranch, and they had to take care of the cattle and the bovines, and they didn't have a choice. They couldn't sell it.
Yeah, but there's clearly something there obstructing everything.
But still, there's really nothing that's truly terrifying yet.
Talking about that massive wolfing is terrifying enough?
The wolf thing, but that could be explained. Nothing's like super terrifying yet. You see aircraft, but it looked like a stealth bomber, so you could sort of explain it away that perhaps there's military stuff going on. So Gwen is by herself. Terry's out of town. Kids are with friends. She's coming back home to the ranch, and if you remember, there's the gate there, so you have to stop the car, open the gate, pull through, and then get it back out and close the gate.
You mean there's not a button you push?
No, it's manual. So she gets back into the car after opening and closing the gate when she saw a dark shadow moving slowly over the car, like a dark cloud, but it was a clear night. So she looked up and she saw a large black triangular object moving slowly and pacing her car as she drove it towards the homestead. It made no noise and flew no more than 20 to 30 feet above the car.
So it's following the car?
It's following the car, yep. She saw tiny multicolored lights, red, green, blue, and yellow, and she stepped on the gas, and the thing kept pace once she... Totally. I need to... if I put my glasses on, I can't read it. If I take them off, I can't read it, so... I need bifocals, and I don't want to get them.
So I think the house about to go there. I think they're called bifocals, Jamie.
They are, and I don't want them. So... I'll just,
But it's for the podcast.
I'm just, if I hold the paper out this way, if you hold the paper from the other side of the table.
I'll hold it over here. I break the water bottle. Hey, here's your paper holder.
Okay. So she steps on the gas, and this aircraft keeps pace with her as she speeds up. And once she reaches the homestead, the object continued west over the house until she lost sight of it. So it's pacing the car, it's over the car, pacing the car after she gets on the property. And it stays with her even when she speeds up. But then once she gets to the house, it continues off to the west and disappears.
This aircraft that she clearly described follows her to the house, passes by her over the house, and just continues on like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, like it wasn't following her. It just continued off and disappeared. And by description is the same thing Terry saw. Triangular craft with the multicolored lights.
I wonder if the lights are scanning the ground.
That's possible. Later, after she's talked to Terry on the phone, she's eating dinner and she's standing at the sink doing the dishes. She looks out the window and sees what looks like a large RV parked in the pasture about 200 yards from the house. The RV interior was brightly lit and she could see what looked like a desk inside. Then a black-colored figure came into view, sitting behind the desk, and appeared to be something in black uniform, including some type of headgear. As she watched, the figure suddenly stood up and went to what looked like a light-filled doorway. The figure looked huge, maybe 7 feet tall, dressed in all black clothing with something like a black visor over its face and knee-high boots. So...
She saw a pretty good description.
Yeah, it's not that far away. It's 200 yards from the house. Another, referring to it as an RV or refrigerator-shaped object, is another description that's been used. So she sees it, the interior lights are on, she sees a desk, there's a figure sitting at the desk, and then that figure gets up, and it's this 7-foot-tall person, humanoid, dressed all in black with a visor down over their face and knee-high boots. I picture, like, I'm going to say Chips. You've never seen Chips. I know you.
Picture Robocop.
Oh, I never watched Robocop, but I know what that is. So yeah. Yeah, same thing.
Chips.
Not as old as Chips. You ever watch Chips with...
I've eaten it. I eaten some chips.
No, like, it was called Chips. The California Highway Patrol. It was a show with Poncherella.
Who?
Poncherella. It was the one officer. My grandmother liked him.
What year did that show come out again?
A long time ago, Tim.
Right.
A long time ago.
For those who don't know, I was born in 96.
I was not. We'll just leave it at that. The figure seemed to be looking out the doorway, staring directly at her, and then she quickly closed the drapes and called Terry, who, based on the sound of his wife's voice, made the decision to drive home immediately. So he left whatever he was doing and came home.
Sadly, I don't think that'll make any difference.
Well, he was far enough away that he didn't get home until the next morning. So he and Gwen, when they got home, he and Gwen walked to where she had seen the RV, and both of them saw huge footprints in the soft mud. The size of the prints shocked them both, as they were about 18 inches long. It did not resemble a military boot, just a smooth surface and a rounded heel. So they actually saw footprints.
An 18-inch boot. Well, 18-inch footprint, period.
Which is all about an size 18 shoe.
That is absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what size shoes Shaquille O'Neal wears.
I don't know. 7-foot tall creature. He's 7 feet tall. You're looking up what size shoes Shaquille O'Neal wears, aren't you?
Don't judge me. Judge when I do weird things like this.
Mm-hmm. So you look that up. But at this point, the kids are no longer allowed outside the house at night. They're not allowed to leave the house at night anymore.
I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah.
All right, so... Ooh, well, we're gonna have a discussion here then, because it says Shaq's feet are nearly 15 inches long, which is a size 23 shoe. Shaquille O'Neal's 7 foot, 1 inch tall, 325
So
pounds.
if that's a size 23, 15 and 23 is what, 8 inches longer?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a size 26.
I'm looking that up.
Which is twice the size of my son's feet. That's like a flipper.
Literally.
Seriously. That's a big honking foot.
That's a big honking foot.
It is a big foot.
That's a honking foot. If you're a truck driver, you're honking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All through the town.
If you're a truck driver with that size shoe, you're not driving a normal truck, because it would be bigger than the area your foot would be in to drive it. So the Shermans also saw orange objects that would appear in the western sky, and they saw them dozens of times, and they would appear in the sky and hover low over the cottonwood trees about a mile away. And Terry used binoculars or the night vision scope on his rifle to view them.
So a lot of this stuff seems to come from the west.
Yeah. Sometimes the object looked flattened and elongated, and sometimes it looked like a large orb bigger than a harvest moon and nearly perfectly round. It always appeared in the same place, and one night as Terry looked at the object, he saw what looked like a blue sky inside the object. It looked like the object was a window into somewhere else where it was still daylight.
Interesting.
So at this point, Terry starts thinking perhaps the things going on at his ranch might be caused by different dimensions or alternate realities.
I mean, you're kind of forced to think that, don't you think?
Yeah, well, you see a portal. Basically, he sees a portal open up into another world, basically, is a good way to describe it.
I mean, yeah. That's
what he saw. Yeah. Another time he looked at the object, he didn't see sky, but saw what looked like different layers. As he watched, he saw a black object that was silhouetted against the orange orb. The object grew bigger and was flying at a high rate of speed directly toward Terry. It came out of the center of the orb. It was triangular, and he could only make out the shape because of the speed. It moved quietly and then vanished. So he couldn't really tell any other details because it was going too fast.
But that's Mothman.
Mothman wasn't triangular shaped. Terry said the orange object in the sky looked different depending on the viewer's point of view. The homestead on the ranch was the only location where the orange object was clearly visible from the road. And then from the roadway it looked only like a faint orange cloud.
Okay.
So if you're at the homestead, you could see it clear, but if you were viewing it from the road, it just looked like an orange cloud. Nothing.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's kind of like trying to camouflage itself.
Kind of, yeah. In 1994 to 95, strange things began to happen with the cattle. One night there was a heavy snowstorm and one of Terry's prize cows was missing, and he was afraid that the cow was injured and would freeze to death because it actually gets pretty cold in Utah in the wintertime. So he set out on horseback to find the cow. After searching the entire ranch, he spotted fresh tracks in the snow, and he followed them and realized that based on the spacing of the tracks, the cow was actually running, and this was actually unusual behavior, especially in snow. The cow had been running fast, weaving in and out of brush, entering a clearing where there was no cover, and the cow's tracks just stopped. They never saw the cow again.
That's normal.
Totally. Vanishing cow. Mm-hmm. So over the next few months, 4 more cows went missing. They just completely disappeared.
Say similar circumstances, just there and gone?
It didn't really say specifically, but I imagine similar circumstances. In April of 1995, heavy rains moved in, and Terry and his son went out to check the cattle. The son was chasing down a calf when he passed a cow that was stuck in the canal, and it was not able to climb up the muddy walls, probably because as it tried to climb out, the cow's so heavy that it's just sliding in the mud. So he made a note to get the cow out once he caught the calf, because the cow would be okay. For any animal lovers, the cow would be okay where she was. She wasn't in any danger at that point in time. The calf, if a calf fell in the canal, it would probably drown because it's not very big. Just in case somebody's like, oh, he left the cow.
Man, he's coming back for it. He's
coming back for it. They know how to... These are prize animals. They are worth a lot of money. They're not going to let something happen to them.
I agree.
So when he returned, he found the cow was motionless. And when he looked closer, the cow's entire rear end had been carved out with what looked like extremely sharp instruments. Terry rode up and jumped down to inspect the cow and found no blood. He said it looked like a 6-inch diameter, perfectly circular saw with a sucking device attached, jammed into the animal's rear end and sucked out the entire insides.
That's foul.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Terry's son swore the animal was fully alive no more than 20 minutes before.
20 minutes basically completely dissect the cow from a 6-inch hole from the butthole?
Yep.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Gwen, in the meantime, had begun to feel like she was constantly watched until she left the room, so whatever it was could take something and hide it often, and it often hid it actually in the microwave. So she felt like while she's in the house, something is watching her, and then the minute she leaves the room, whatever's watching her takes something and hides it in the microwave.
Why the microwave?
I don't know. It's a good place to hide stuff. You still have the poltergeist activity in the house. 3 months later, Terry found another mutilated cow near some bushes. He'd been worried after seeing several strange lights flying low among his cattle the previous night, and the bright yellow headlamps that flew low over the property had become common. So he was seeing like headlamp sort of lights flying low, and they were over the cattle, and he was a little worried, and he went out and he found another mutilated cow.
Yay.
The cow's rear end and reproductive organs had been carved out and one of the ears surgically removed. There was a small pool of a strange substance that had a chemical odor. Terry rode to get a container to gather a sample of the liquid, but when he returned, it was completely gone. I would imagine evaporated.
But, I mean, you can go as far as maybe someone's watching him to see what he's looking at.
Possibly, but where were they? I mean, he's got 480 acres.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I mean,
it can pop in and out just as well as it wants to.
In 1996, Terry lost 2 more animals to mutilation, each having areas removed with surgical precision.
Creepy.
They began seeing orbs. One blue orb darted and started moving towards Gwen and Terry, and it stopped in midair and hovered about 20 feet away from them. The exterior of the orb was clear. It had what they thought was like a hard shell, like glass, and was 2 to 3 times the size of a baseball. Inside the orb, it swirled with a blue substance, and it seemed like the substance began to boil. He could hear a faint crackling sound coming from the object like static electricity. So
like supercharging up almost.
Kind of. So it almost reminds me of those glass balls that have the electric current in it, and you touch it and it moves to your fingers. That's sort of what I imagine, except it didn't have it didn't have like that. It was more of like I don't know.
Just go ahead and admit, though, you're excited the fact I knew exactly what you were talking
about. I really was. I didn't really have to over-explain. It was nice. But most people have seen that. It makes your hair stand on end.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In science class.
Yes. It's at the Science Center in Balmer.
I just did it back in my elementary school or middle school.
No, I remember the big one at the Science Center in Balmer.
Where?
Balmer in Baltimore. They see this orb, and suddenly Gwen, who was terrified, she was completely terrified, she turns on her flashlight, and the effect was instantaneous. The orb darted away into the branches of a tree as though trying to avoid the flashlight beam, and it moved through the trees at a high speed and then shot out of sight behind the homestead. They both were overcome with paralyzing fear.
So like almost like it doesn't like the light.
It didn't like the flashlight beam, but it also made them completely terrified. Were they terrified because they saw this thing and it freaked them out? I mean, I can't imagine why this would suddenly paralyze them with fear and none of the other stuff did. I imagine it was something that it created. It created that fear in them somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, they went back to the house, and once inside, the living room filled with a blue glow. The orb actually had come back, and it moved slowly past the windows in the house. The lights in the house dimmed and then brightened again once the object moved past. They looked out the window and watched the orb move over the ridge 100 yards away, dimming their outside light as it passed. So it showed back up and is almost like it's looking in their window. It's like going past the homestead. And while it did, it's like it pulled the energy from their electricity and it dimmed the lights in the house, and then when it went past, the lights got bright again, and then they watched it go away, and it's dimming all their outside lights too as it goes.
Yeah, that ain't normal.
No, totally not. So June 1996, the rumors about the ranch were starting to spread, and all the craziness that's going on. And a man shows up at the ranch explaining that he had heard about the strange happenings on the ranch and that he had driven a long way to visit the ranch and he just wanted to go and meditate on the property. So Terry and his son are the ones who come across this guy, and they kind of like smirk at each other like, sure, whatever. So Terry and his son, they take the man onto the ranch and they drive him in there and get to an area that the man indicates this is where he wants to meditate.
So something told him to meditate there?
That's what he wanted to do.
Okay.
He wanted to meditate on the ranch. The guy walks out to the middle of an open area about 100 yards from the tree line. Terry walks out with him part of the way, and then Terry's son stayed back at the vehicle. So the son is staying at the car. Terry walks part of the way with the guy, and then guy goes to where he's going to meditate. So Terry was about 30 yards from the guy, and the guy had his eyes closed and had spread both his arms out, and it was silent. The sun was shining, and this tall, blonde-haired guy is standing there with his eyes closed and his arms raised, meditating. In the distance, Terry heard the sound of a cowbell. None of his animals have cowbells. None of his bovines have any cowbells whatsoever.
So no bell on bovine.
Mm-mm. Terry said that the sound seemed to be coming from the trees, and he watched the trees and thought he saw a faint blur, like something was moving very fast between the trees. The object was large and seemed to be circling, and Terry started to become uneasy. And then without warning, something left the tree line and went straight for the meditating man, who was completely unaware. Terry said it moved fast and he couldn't tell what it was, even though it was daylight. It was like the thing was cloaked.
That's creepy.
The huge thing stopped inches from the meditating man as it let out a deep, loud animal roar that echoed through the ranch and sounded like half bear, half lion. The man leaped back 10 feet and fell down and began screaming, and as fast as the unseen thing or creature came, it left and went back to the tree line.
I don't want to pee that thing off.
So the guy was on the ground, still screaming hysterically, and Terry went to make sure he wasn't injured, and the man jumped up and threw his arms around Terry, weeping like a baby, and was completely out of his mind with fear. And the guy didn't want to let go, and Terry had to threaten to hit him if he didn't get off of him. So the stranger swore the land was cursed and left the ranch driving erratically. They actually were a little concerned about his safety, because even as they watched him get off the property, he was still kind of driving erratically. Well, Terry estimated the thing he saw was moving 50 to 60 miles per hour when it broke from the cover of the trees. So we're done with the meditating guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a pansy.
He took off. I'm sorry if something you couldn't see got in your face and screamed, roared at you. I'd piss my pants, crap my pants.
No offense, you purposely go to a ranch that has issues like that, you know what I mean? And then you're going to try to do some weird...
Some of it's You're talking to the person who went and spent the night at a haunted penitentiary.
Yeah, no one ever said something wasn't wrong with you.
You're so funny. Oh, God.
Oh, man.
So, seeing the large orange orb, or whatever it was, became commonplace, and it really wasn't very concerning. But one day Terry saw a small flash of blue light at the far end of the pasture, and his dogs also noticed it and began a low-pitched growl. So the large orange orb, or the portal, whatever, not that big of a deal. It was seen often, they didn't really care, but then this one night they see this blue light, and the dogs start growling. I hate this story.
If this is the one I'm talking, okay.
It probably is.
Okay.
Yeah. So he saw it again, and it was now only about 300 yards away and moving fast along the bottom of his pasture, north to south, less than 10 feet off the ground. And it did an abrupt turn and began flying straight towards where Terry was located. It was perfectly round and it was intense blue, and it was bigger than a baseball and moving with an intelligence. He had seen these before, and they typically meant trouble. They were not something that were considered
good.
Yeah, good or neutral or anything. The dogs were barking, carrying on, and the object changed direction again, moving north. Without really thinking, he set the dogs loose, and the 3 dogs took off at top speed after the orb. And at first, it didn't really seem to react to the dogs until they got closer. Then it moved, so it was just above the ground, and the dogs were leaping at the object, snapping and snarling. And each time the dogs leaped, the orb moved out of the way. And it seemed like it was deliberately teasing the dogs, getting the dogs to chase it.
Okay. I'm just curious that you don't know what the thing is, and the first thing you do is cut your dogs loose.
Well, it said he didn't really think about it.
I don't think he did a lot of thinking, my personal opinion.
I mean, it's easy to look back on with hindsight now, knowing what we know with this story, but this is when this story was kind of going on. And, I mean, you had cattle mutilations, but that really wasn't they're crazy, but that's something that had started, I think, back in the 70s. I think, is when cattle mutilations kind of started becoming associated with like UFO sightings and things. So it's something that people already heard of, and it's creepy for it to be on your land, but still, you don't think that some orb is what's doing it. You know what I mean? You're not really probably equating orbs to, you're thinking more some creature or person or whatever. I don't know. I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt.
You've been doing that a lot.
No, I don't think he was doing anything to be deliberately dumb or anything. It was all new. I mean, it was completely new to them. It's not like the former owners clued them into the crazy crap that was going on. They just kind of walked into it, and it was a question like, what is all the crap going on in the house? You know, just not sure. So, and then you can't sell. You can't turn around and sell it right after you buy it. You can't be like, oh, sorry, changed my mind. So what else are you going to do?
Fair.
Live with it. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
So I could see where he just lets the dogs loose and to chase it, to see what, like go get it type of thing. So the orb and the dogs moved to a thick grove of trees, and it seemed like the orb was luring the dogs there. And when they entered the trees, Terry heard the fearful yelps of the dogs in agony, and then silence, and nothing moved, and the dogs didn't return.
Yeah, not today, Satan.
It was evening or night, and Terry didn't dare look for the dogs until the morning. And when he went out to look for them, he smelled burned flesh and saw 3 large circles of brown, dried-out grass, and in the center of each was a blackened, greasy mess, which was what was left of the dogs. Yeah.
That's foul. Very foul.
Yep, and this is the point where Terry agreed that it was time to sell the ranch. So it's 2 years after they've purchased it, and he's now agreeing with his wife and kids. It's time to go. This is where Robert Bigelow enters the equation.
Old Bigelow.
So he's the billionaire owner of Budget Suites of America, and that's a hotel chain. And he's the founder of Bigelow Aerospace, and he used his wealth to provide support for investigations into UFOs and the continuation of consciousness after death. He founded NIDS, which is the National Institute of Discovery Science, in 1995, and he purchased the ranch from the Shermans in 1996. Bigelow was said to have had a fascination with UFOs since the age of 3, and that was when his mom told him a story about a close encounter his grandparents had. And then in a 60 Minutes interview that he did, he said aliens are already here right under our noses. And he also had his own experiences too, I believe. Bigelow's also, he urged his friend Senator Harry Reid to start looking into the UFO and UAP. UAPs are unidentified aerial phenomena. That's what the military calls UFOs, because they want to be different, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you don't want the military kind of going with the layman terms, you know what I mean?
I don't know. Like, UFO isn't good enough. It's an unidentified flying object. No, it's an unidentified aerial phenomena. Just the same thing, but fancy.
Yeah. It's the government.
Yeah.
Duh, $5 words turn to 21s.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Let's go.
Oh, God. Anyway, they were looking into those accounts, and Reid initiated the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
No, it's the SpaceX.
Yeah. So Bigelow buys the ranch from Terry and Gwen Sherman in 1996 in order to research scientifically what's going on. Bigelow a lot of times has gotten a bad rap with certain people, like he's crazy or out there or whatever, but I don't think that's really the case. I think he really just wants to come up with answers for strange things that are going on.
I mean, he's a billionaire with an interest that millions of people have an interest in and just don't like talking about.
I actually read something where it said that he knew he was not going to be able to be a scientist himself. So he was going to get into a line of work that would make him wealthy enough to fund people who study this stuff. And that's exactly what he did. He has a hotel chain and is a billionaire and uses his money to research all the stuff he has interest in.
It's weird how people's brains are wired, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. He knew he couldn't do it.
There's scientists that, I mean, let's be honest, that bust their butt that don't make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, they're $100,000, but they gotta pay for school. Mm-hmm. Then you got some people who are just naturally they're entrepreneurs, and they make millions of dollars off of just random things.
Yep. So Skinwalker Ranch has become the most studied paranormal hotspot in history, with a joint endeavor between private industry and the Department of Defense. It was studied the wide range of bizarre encounters, and one of the aims was to... My notes, it's supposed to say assess, but it says asses.
Just to put this out there, I definitely don't read Jamie's notes at all. I tried to sit over here and read them before she gets going through so I can kind of like plot in my head what I want to say to her. And I definitely didn't see asses on her because I would have let you have it.
Where is it?
Right there, asses.
It's asses. I forgot an S. It's also 11:47 p.m. So they were studying a wide range of bizarre encounters, and one of the aims was to assess if the phenomena indicated a national defense threat. So basically, they wanted to see if it indicated that there was a threat, and they already kind of basically felt that UFOs were considered a threat.
I mean, I don't know how you can. I don't know how you don't consider them a threat.
I know you don't know what they are, that's where the threat lies.
I mean, what is it? Yeah, Bigfoot and all that, like even other creatures in the water. Like for us to even know what it is, we have to kill it first.
Mm-hmm. So Terry isn't done with the ranch. Terry takes a job as the ranch manager a couple weeks after ownership is transferred from him to Robert Bigelow. And he was in charge of taking care of the livestock that was brought onto the ranch as bait, which I don't agree with at all. He mended fences, supervised irrigation, and sometimes joined the scientific team on overnight watches.
No offense. Sounds like he just did a lot of the beat work.
Yeah, but I guess he's got to have a job.
Hey, it pays the
he's
bills.
not ranching at this point.
Yeah, it pays the bills. Why not?
And he probably made pretty decent money, I would think.
Yeah, I would think that they probably paid him more for more information. I know he says this is what he did. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't do it, but you know for a fact, they were like, hey, look, this happened. Is that normal?
Oh, he shared with them what had gone on. I know he was involved in telling them specifics and in reading the book, and I don't remember if I have it in here or not, but there's discussion about they were trying to get information on this one thing, and I may say this more than once because it may be further in the notes, but he actually was telling them, no, I was stealthy in watching these. I hid and watched them, and they were kind of like in your face watching them, and it never seemed to pan out. And he was just like, that's because you're not doing it this way. So he did share with them what he did and everything. So, he got paid pretty good for that.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Bigelow. Come on now.
Yeah. So NIDS, which is what I'm calling it, I'm not spelling that out, began interviewing locals in the area. They interviewed people at the ranches that bordered the Skinwalker Ranch, and they also had their share of strange activity, which included cattle mutilations, seeing multiple colored balls of light, and a large triangular object. At this point, we just had Terry and his family's account of the things going on, but now they've interviewed other people in the area, and it's being backed up by the others in the area.
So it sounds like it's a little bit more than just Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. One neighboring rancher told of how he found one of his cows down with 2 broken legs, and knowing she would need to be put down, he went to retrieve his gun, but when he returned, the cow had vanished.
That's weird.
Which, it didn't go anywhere with 2 broken legs.
I mean, yeah. A cow can weigh up to 2,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm. The same family also told of what they said were Mexican hat-shaped UFOs that flew and hovered over the ridge 100 yards from their home. The wife told of a time when she was returning from town and saw a silver aircraft flying towards the ridge, and she was certain there would be an explosion when it hit, but it flew into the ridge smoothly as if the ridge wasn't even there.
So, disappeared into it?
Yeah, kind of reminds me of the hangar door on Mount Adams in the UFO Ranch episode. Go check it out if you haven't already. Cattle mutilations continued on the ranch. March of 1997, Terry let the NIDS team know that one of the calves had been dismembered in broad daylight. Yeah. The NIDS team arrived to find it looked like the calf had been ripped apart by great force. It was an 84-pound calf with about 40 pounds missing, including the blood. There was a complete lack of blood, and the veterinarian said the ear was taken off with a scalpel or sharp knife with precision, because they would have veterinarians do necropsies on the animal, scientifically at this point. Creepy.
I just want to bring out the fact that to show how wealthy Bigelow is, Bigelow. I'm pretty sure I'm going to say his name wrong the entire time, so I'm not even going to try. The fact that you can, A, purchase a ranch strictly for research purposes, then B, I don't know if he bought Terry's cattle, which I don't think he
didn't. I don't think he did.
So he bought other cattle and fully stocked the ranch with other cattle.
No, I think Terry brought his cattle back to the ranch. I don't think they had a fully stocked ranch. I just think they had some cows as bait, because that seems to get things going when the animals are on the ranch.
I was always kind of curious then, because, if you have cows are not cheap.
So one night, Terry went out to check the cattle with one of the NIDS scientists. They were driving his beat-up farm truck. When he turned the headlights on, he picked up a large black shadow standing in the tree line, and it looked like a cow. And Terry figured the cow was in trouble, so he headed for it. The headlights then picked up 2 large yellow orbs staring from the large tree. He guns the engine, and he could clearly see the yellow was eye shine from a huge animal perched about 20 feet off the ground. So when we say orbs, we're not talking like the flying orbs that he's seeing. We're talking animal eye shine.
Yeah, so reflecting back at him.
Yes. 50 yards away from the creature, Terry stopped the truck and grabbed his rifle. Terry shot and hit the animal. He saw it fall to the ground, and then he drove over to the tree where it fell, but there was no sign of the creature. Terry said he saw the creature 30 yards away and shot again, point blank, basically 30 yards away. They searched for the animal, but found nothing. No blood in the snow, nothing except one single oval-shaped track with 2 sharp claws protruding from the rear. It looked almost like a raptor print, but it was large and very heavy. Later, Terry said he saw 2 creatures, one on the ground, one in the tree, and the one on the ground was like a huge 400-pound dog-like creature. 400 pounds is freaking huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Mastiffs can sometimes get to 200 pounds, but that would be like an overweight They're about 150. Most Great Danes are around 150.
You're like a bear almost, like a black bear.
I'm going to say, that's like bear size.
I think black bear gets up to 500.
Yeah.
But black bears also, they're like kind of thick looking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it's a dog-like creature, dogs are 9 times out of 10.
So Terry had 4 bulls that he had on the property of the ranch, and he and Gwen were out checking on the cattle when Gwen screamed and pointed to the paddock where the bulls were kept, and they were gone. So they began searching, because these are expensive prize animals, and they eventually made their way over to a small trailer at the west side of the corral. There was no entrance into the trailer other than a door that was tightly locked and hadn't been opened in years. And there inside the trailer were all 4 bulls standing silently in a daze. And Terry banged on the side of the trailer, which woke the animals up, and they went nuts and destroyed the inside. They completely trashed the trailer. They did get out. They trashed it, busted through the door, got out. When they inspected the trailer, there were cobwebs on the inside of the door that were undisturbed, and the metal bars of the enclosure closest to the trailer were highly magnetized. So it didn't look like anything had opened the door, and the bars near the trailer are magnetized, which they wouldn't normally be.
Right.
So that was weird.
That is creepy.
Mm-hmm. Terry watched as an invisible creature seemed to be chasing the cattle, and it made the cattle split, kind of like parting of the Red Sea, as if something had herded them that way. And during this, Terry's compass point kept pointing straight towards the unseen thing. So it's whatever it is, if you think of a cattle dog steering the cattle the way it wants to go, and then splitting them up into 2 different groups, that's what was happening, but you couldn't see what was doing it. May 1997, NIDS built a series of enclosures to house dogs because dogs consistently seemed to be able to alert about what was going on. The enclosures were large, about 80 by 20 feet, with a 15-foot high fence and a wooden viewing platform resembling some sort of weird deer stand. The enclosures were struck by poltergeist-like activity. Unknown persons would open the doors, padlocks vanished, and dogs would escape by unknown means, but there were no tracks or signs of intrusion, and they had teams of people who were watching, but they never saw anything or anyone.
Yeah, not today.
Yeah. 2 NIDS investigators were out investigating one night. It was a silent, brightly lit sphere that was bluish white, the size of a basketball, hovered about 75 yards away, and the 2 dogs they had with them also noticed the object about 15 feet off the ground. Just as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. And one of the men using night vision binoculars exclaimed that he saw a huge black thing in the trees just in front of them moving north. He wasn't sure if it was in the trees or behind the trees, but it was blocking out the stars. And then all of a sudden the scientist yells, "It's got me. It's saying we are watching you." Then there was silence. It got smaller, then was gone. And later when he was questioned, he said it was like it had taken over his mind and it told him that they were watching. So when he said "it's got me," it didn't physically have him. He just felt that they had taken over his brain and telepathically were saying, "We're watching you."
Yeah, normal. Mm-hmm. That's all normal.
Terry and his son, because the family kind of all were involved, they're ranchers, they know what's going on. They had to try to herd some loose cattle back into the fence when they encountered a golf ball size red orb that seemed to be chasing the cattle, and it also spooked the horses. August 25th, 1997, 2 NIDS investigators were on the far side of the property. Their names were Mike and Jim. Jim opted to meditate to see if that would stir up any activity. I mean, come on, Jim. We've already been there, done that.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So Jim decides to meditate, see what he can stir up, and they caught a faint light growing larger. Jim began photographing with infrared film while Mike watched through the night vision binoculars. Jim could see the light had grown to a foot wide and seemed to be positioned above the ground. Mike said it's a tunnel, not just a light, and there was something in the tunnel. Mike suddenly said, "Oh my God, there's a black creature climbing out. I see his head." Mike continued to say it had no face, and the creature climbed out of the tunnel. The creature got on the ground and walked away, and then the light began decreasing in size. When questioned, Mike said, "The night vision turned the light into a 3D tunnel, and a large creature, I'm thinking 400 pounds, at least 6 feet tall, just crawled out of the damn tunnel." They both smelled a sulfur-like odor that was centered on the spot where the light had appeared.
I'm sorry.
Which is something different. Eventually, NIDS had surveillance cameras installed. 3 of the cameras were vandalized, having wires pulled out. They were all vandalized at the same time, and the camera that remained in working order that was facing the area of the vandalized cameras didn't show anything at all. So somebody pulled wires out, and I think it had tape around it too, so the way it did it was like it didn't disturb the tape or anything.
I'm just trying to figure out when's enough's enough.
They're there trying to find out what's going on, so they're trying to kind of stir crap up. So
well, it's listening.
It's like, let's poke it with a stick. So Terry and Gwen arrived at the ranch, and they noticed a large dust cloud in the horse corral, and the horses were going wild. When they got closer, they could see what was spooking the horses. It was a big animal, heavily muscled with short legs, kind of the shape of a hyena's body, but with a bushy tail that was kind of like an exaggerated foxtail. The thing with had the body of a hyena. It moved like a hyena, and it had a dog's head and short legs like a boar. Terry estimated it weighed around 200 pounds, and as Terry approached the corral, the creature took off with Terry in pursuit, and the creature just vanished. So he's chasing it down, and it just disappeared. Poof, gone. Kind of like the wolf back in the day, the first encounter they had on the farm. Branch. It's not a farm, it's a ranch. There were other sightings of a reddish hyena-like creature. by ranch employees and other local men a few miles away. So other people outside of the ranch had seen this too.
So it isn't just the ranch.
No, it wasn't just Terry.
It's like the area.
Mm-hmm. Strange animals, like not your usual wolf. They also saw tropical-looking, small, wren-sized red birds that stayed around in the trees before leaving, and huge spiders. So it's not just the weird wolf thing. It's these small, wrens are very small, red birds that aren't normal. They're kind of tropical-looking, and then they disappear, and giant spiders, which not today, because I don't do spiders.
You don't do spiders?
Don't do spiders. I mean, I'm okay with them, but they better not touch me.
Don't touch my spider.
In 2016, the ranch was sold by Bigelow and was purchased by Brandon Fugel, who began using technology to figure out what was going on at Skinwalker Ranch.
Beautiful.
So we have started a new era of research.
He's a pretty hot scientist.
Yes, pretty hot scientist. So this brings us to the show called Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. That's what, on History Channel?
It is, yep.
So that's currently in its second season, just started a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go over what they did in the first season, basically, and there's been 2 episodes that we've seen. So they have surveillance cameras filming areas of the ranch to try and record phenomena. They monitor air traffic to discern between known sources and anomalies without a known source. They use thermal, infrared, tri-field meters. Tri-field meters measure magnetic, electric, and RF or microwaves. And they have a security force in place to protect the scientific integrity. I'm sorry. I gotta laugh at the security force.
No, like his dragon?
Yes. Yes.
I have a guy named Dragon.
You just look up the memes. They're starting to be plentiful.
Yeah. Because his name does not represent him well.
Yeah, he's a scaredy cat.
Worse than me.
You're kind of funny about it. He's kind of dumb about it.
He's also very annoying.
He's extremely annoying. He's like the token naysayer of the group. You kind of have to have that one person on these shows. And I honestly think he's probably a pretty decent person, and he's probably smarter than he comes across, because I think it's a role that he's playing. I think he's playing a role. I don't...
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really think that's really what he's like.
Do you think the show's staged?
I think some of... Yes.
Okay.
I think some... I don't trust any of these paranormal type shows to be 100% authentic.
Not even with Dr. Travis.
I trust him.
I would trust
more.
him too.
If you watch the interaction, anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll get
okay.
The current ranch manager has seen glowing red eyes at night, and the Skinwalker Ridge has been seen glowing at night, and the tri-field meter goes off, indicating microwaves stronger than cell phone or Wi-Fi routers, which is something that does not naturally exist in nature. It's not explainable by anything normal.
Okay.
Pillars of light are seen shooting out of the mesa. Travis Taylor is part of the research team. This is Dr. Travis that we talk about.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes, he has several degrees. He's an astrophysicist. I actually was looking into him a little bit today. He's written 14 fiction books. He's written umpteen scientific papers, a nonfiction book, he's written, what's the book called? I can't.
How to Cuddle with Tim?
No, not How to Cuddle with Tim.
That's a good looking fella.
School books. What are they called? Not school books.
How to Get Schooled by Tim.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, he's written textbooks. That's what I'm thinking of. He's written textbooks. He has several degrees, like I said. He does have a doctorate in astrophysics. He's actually working on his second doctorate currently. He was born in 1968, so he's in his 50s.
He don't look like it.
He doesn't.
I believe he's from Mobile, Alabama, if I'm correct.
He is from Alabama. That's where he went to school. He kind of has his hand in everything. I mean, he just kind of seems... He's super intelligent.
He's like common sense intelligent, though. You know what I mean? Like,
he's common sense and book smart. I mean, he's just all around smart.
You know, like how someone's so smart, you have a conversation with them, and you're just like, I can't stand talking to that person.
He's not like that. He's down to earth.
Yeah,
he's very down to earth.
He like dumbifies it down for you, but he talks so smart, and you're just like looking at him, you're like, if you weren't married.
His brain turns me on. Well, in his face, because he's pretty hot.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
Don't give me an ice cream cone, I'll tell you what, because I want Dr. Travis Taylor on it.
You're so sick. One of the first things he mentioned about the ranch was that the area the ranch is located is only a few hundred miles away from the Nevada test site where above-ground nuclear testing occurred and radioactive particle fallout would have fallen in the area of the ranch in the 1950s. So they tested nuclear weapons in Nevada, but the way the air moves and everything, there would have been nuclear radioactive fallout in the area of the ranch, which is kind of interesting.
Which would cause what?
Radioactivity.
Okay.
I don't know. I have no idea. Could cause quite a few things. Readings of RF and microwaves were triangulated, and it was determined that the source was coming from a point approximately 5,700 feet above the ranch, which is about a mile.
Yeah.
So they were getting readings on their tri-field meters. They realized the readings are higher up in the air than down towards the ground, and they were able to... He's so smart doing all these mathematical things, and he triangulates it and determines 5,700 feet above the ground.
Well, by the way, he's doing this all without a calculator.
Yeah,
like, it's literally
no calculator.
Like top
in
of
his
his dome.
It's in his head, unless he did it off camera. So he began trying to test the levels in the sky. They first launched rockets, and then while launching the rockets, the group witnessed a UFO, which was also actually caught on video. So
yeah,
you can twice. You can actually see that on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Next, they used weather balloons that were set up by an expert in using the weather balloons. It was somebody he knew at the college.
Yeah, all these people are believe it or not, I believe have some kind of contact with him. Like, they either worked with him in the past or they're affiliated with multiple people that he's
just the weather balloon person and the girl who did the rockets, I think.
What about
the other scientists there at the ranch, I don't know that they did work with him before.
Oh, no, I'm talking like the people they bring in. Like,
oh, the ones that brought in, he's the one, I think, who has contact with
correct.
Him.
And he brings in some pretty smart people.
Yeah, super smart. The successful launch ended up having high readings at the 5,000-foot mark, and then it stopped transmitting the data completely, which had never happened before in the use of this equipment. So they got the readings at the 5,000-foot mark, and then it completely was shut down.
Which is not normal.
And they never found the balloon. The balloon's gone. It's completely stopped transmitting.
In the words of the baby Grinch, balloon go, bye-bye.
Yeah. They used ground-penetrating radar to survey what might be in the ground, because everybody's afraid to dig here.
It's like a thing.
When you dig, apparently bad things happen. That's why there was the clause in the deed when the Shermans bought it to notify them before they dug. So anyway, they found an anomaly about 1,000 feet long while they were looking around in the area of the underground anomaly. Dr. Taylor actually received radiation burns that he actually was treated for. He needed to be treated for that.
Yeah. Chunk cut off his eye, like a chunk that was above his eye.
Yeah.
And then his finger.
Yeah. A cow also died suddenly, and in the surveillance video, there is a UFO above the cow before it dies. There was also an attack on the alpacas. They actually brought in some alpacas because they were exotic animals, and they wanted to see if that changed things. The alpacas got attacked on the ranch by an unknown animal. The surveillance camera in the area of the corral malfunctioned. There was some very blurry video from a camera that was further away that showed the attack, but you couldn't really see much detail. You could tell there was an animal in the corral going after them. They didn't die.
No, they did not, but they were hurt.
Yeah. I said the phenomena on the ranch seems both smart and malevolent. Other people in the area who had UFO experiences also seem to have poltergeist-like activity, according to Junior Hicks from a while ago. So the poltergeist activity is apparently not uncommon in this area if you've also had UFO experiences.
Interesting.
One theory that Travis Taylor suggested was the idea of a wormhole. A wormhole is also called the Einstein-Rosen bridge or the Einstein-Rosen wormhole. And if you visualize a tunnel with the two ends at separate points in space-time, So different locations or different points in time or both. It's consistent with the general theory of relativity. General relativity explains the law of gravitation and its relation to the other forces of nature. It applies to the cosmological and astrophysical realm, including astronomy. Wormholes could actually connect extremely long distances, billions of light years, short distances like meters, different universes, or different points in time. So if you took a piece of paper, drew 2 points on a piece of paper, not next to each other, but like one on each end of the paper, and then folded the paper so the 2 points met, that's basically a wormhole. You're taking 2 points either in space or 2 points in time, it can be either one, and you're joining them. It's only a theory, it hasn't been proven.
Okay.
But Einstein was pretty freaking smart.
You don't say.
And I imagine that, that's kind of my theory on what's going on here, is that we've already talked about portals. There's people, like, the Sherman saw a portal.
Right.
Saw things come out of it. Saw other worlds in it. You had the researchers from NIDS see a creature come out of a portal, basically.
Correct.
So I really think that's kind of what's going on here.
I also think that what we should do is another episode, like a part 3, but like an update after the season kind of progresses on. Because there is some cool things coming up. Yes,
I'm listening to you, but I actually have notes on the 2 episodes. Because you know I took notes. Mm-hmm. Travis Taylor basically said Skinwalker has things that can't be explained with modern physics. It's one thing he came out and said. Well, at Homestead 2, there's 3 Homestead locations. At what they call Homestead 2, there's been the portal where the creature came out of. That's where NIDS saw that. And that's where the radiation event happened. And that's also where people have heard voices above their heads and nobody's there. Mm-hmm. They found this hole that was used to throw brush and trees and branches in.
Yep.
And they decided somebody filled it up with water and the water disappeared pretty quick. So they suggested, well, if we can't dig, what if we just fill it up with water and see if we can figure out where the water goes? So they determined, Travis Taylor determined in 5 seconds that 45,000 gallons of water were used to actually fill up this hole. And they put dye in it. And then they sent others around to the various areas where it should show up on the ranch. And it didn't. They don't know where. And this 45,000 gallons disappeared in a matter of minutes.
Mm-hmm. So 3 hours to fill it up and then 10 minutes to drain or something like that?
It was ridiculous. So at the same time, so they start pulling the brush out of the hole. The one security guy's phone starts going nuts. It's bypassing the passcode and doing all kinds of crazy things. It's dialing random contacts. It turns off, turns back on, takes screenshots, going into different apps, completely bypassing the passcode. It doesn't have that kind of technology, hacking technology. Like nobody has that. So
yeah.
It also did it when the cow died in the season before. Mm-hmm. It also did it when they shot the rockets off.
That it did.
And every time something big happens, it seems like his phone goes nuts. Then that night, they're all outside and they see this yellowish orange object that vanished when they hit it with the light. And they said it was kind of rectangular. The brush didn't move. It didn't leave any marks in the soft ground. Cameras didn't pick it up. After they saw that, something flew across the sky, but it was a horizontal trajectory, so it was not a shooting star. It went straight, like parallel with the horizon. And at the same time, they had a sense of fear and felt danger. So it made me think of the RV when they said the rectangular object.
That's fair.
But I don't think that's what it was. Ryan Skinner was an investigator in the area, and he said one time he saw a ball of light that came up towards him. He had a sense of fear when seeing it. He was so afraid he actually dropped his expensive camera and took off running and left the camera to get away. There are petroglyphs on the mesa, and they seem to show a star map. That's what Travis thought. It was a star map. They actually brought in an archaeologist to look at the petroglyphs. He was actually a petroglyph expert, and He actually said that the natives believed the area, it echoed, and when there was an area that echoed, it was an area of great magic, and that the curve seen in the petroglyph was a serpent or a snake, and that was a metaphor or a symbol for life and death. Basically, they were guardians of portals, and that the symbol of a portal window, a portal was a window into the supernatural, and that was part of the rock drawing, and it memorialized their belief in portals. So he's saying the Native Americans had these same beliefs, that they were portals, which, anyway. That just didn't make any sense.
Nope.
Anyway, so that's the basic gist of what's been going on.
Look, I'm with Dr. Taylor on this. He's a smart guy, not only because he's good looking, but he's kind of rational. He said there's some stuff that we just don't know how to measure it or catch it yet. Yeah. So maybe this allows us to start thinking a different way, maybe.
Maybe.
But I think we should do an update episode after to get a few more.
Maybe at the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the end of this season, we'll have to update on everything that went on. And like I said, I don't really put a whole lot of stock in these shows because they are actually listed as entertainment, even though it's kind of like a reality show, but they're also listed as entertainment. And this goes along with the ghost shows too. That allows them to edit it and do things that aren't reality. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So how authentic are these people? If you watch the show, and we've talked about it, Travis Taylor has these looks where he's kind of rolling his eyes slightly, getting frustrated with some of the drama that's trying to be stirred up. I think he's pretty smart. He's on a lot of paranormal shows. He must have a pretty big interest or belief in the paranormal. He's on The Unexplained with William Shatner, which I just started binging, so.
I think he does.
But I think also his scientific background makes him more
credible,
wanting to come up with an answer. So, anyway.
Well, perfect, Jamie. Well, I think we can conclude this.
I think so, because Tim's falling asleep.
I am. Well, Jamie, tell everybody where they can find us at.
You can find us on your favorite podcasting app. You can also find us at lurkpodcast.com, and you can also find links to our social media sites on there. We Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I suggest following one or all of those because that's where any photos associated with the episode will be posted. Any resources, links, anything would be in the show notes, as well as a link to merch. You can get yourself a really super great
t-shirt
logo t-shirt.
Merch.
So that's where they can find us. As always, leave a 5-star review too if you listen to us on Apple. That'd be great.
Outstanding. Well, till next time.
Keep lurking.